Welcome back everyone, it is Mike from ManaHoarders. In this video I'm going to bring you a commander deck tech for Sivriss, Nightmare Speaker. You can cast him for 3 and a black, you get a legendary Snake, Cleric, Warlock. We can tap Sivriss and sacrifice another creature or artifact, and then for each opponent we mill a card, then return that card from our graveyard to our hand unless that player pays 3 life. And for our background for this commander, we chose Cloakwood Hermit. You get a legendary enchantment background. Commander creatures we own have, at the beginning of our end step, if a creature card was put into our graveyard from anywhere this turn, we create 2 tapped 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. Before we dive into the deck, let's go over a few key points. First up, the final price for this build came in at $109.80. This does include the price of our commander and all of our lands. Now do bear in mind some of these prices will vary greatly depending on the quality of the cards you purchase, the vendor you use, and a variety of other factors. Now let's discuss what this deck actually wants to do. We are going to be generating card advantage whenever we tap our commander and sacrifice either an artifact or a creature. Then we are going to mill 3 cards, generating pretty good card advantage in this specific color combination, since we do have quite a bit of graveyard recursion. So now either our opponents are going to pay 3 life to keep these cards in our graveyard, or we're going to be getting them back. Now, granted, even if they do pay the 3 life, it's not going to matter, since we have so many ways to get them back anyway. This also gives us a nice avenue for value from our legendary background. Whenever our creatures are entering our graveyard from anywhere, that includes milling them, we only have to mill 1 creature card to get the 2 squirrels at the end of our turn. Now, while it does not seem insanely powerful, it always gives us something to sacrifice to our commander to keep generating this value. Now on top of this, we have plenty of cards that care about when we sacrifice creatures, whenever they enter graveyards, or whenever they leave graveyards, so we can create more tokens or potentially damage our opponents. Now with our introductions out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into the deck. First up are our artifacts. Altar of Baal, we can pay 2 and a black and tap it to exile a creature we control, and return target creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield, but we can only activate this as a sorcery. Arcane Signet taps to give us 1 color of our commander's color identity. Ashnod's Altar, we can sacrifice a creature to add 2 colorless mana. Commander Sphere, we can tap it to add 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity. Desecrated Tomb, whenever 1 or more creature cards leave our graveyard, we get a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. Mind Stone taps to give us a colorless mana. Soul Ring taps to give us 2 colorless mana. Swiftfoot Boots gives the creature hexproof and haste. Very good with our commander, so we can begin activating his ability as soon as he comes out. 1000-Year Elixir, we can activate abilities of creatures we control as though they had haste. We can also pay 1 and tap it to untap target creature, potentially tapping our commander twice, generating twice as much value in a single turn. Moving on to our creatures, we do have some legends helping out our commander. Chatterfang Squirrel General has Forest Walk. If 1 or more tokens would be created under our control, those tokens plus that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens are created instead, and we can pay a black and sacrifice X squirrels, so target creature gets plus X minus X until end of turn. Kaga Shadow Archdruid, whenever she attacks, it gains Death Touch until end of turn, and we mill 2 cards. And once during each of our turns, we can play a land card or cast a permanent spell from among the cards in our graveyard that were put there from our library this turn. Sereth the Viper's Fang, other tapped creatures we control have Death Touch, and untapped creatures we control have Hexproof, giving our commander some protection, but we can also pay 1 and tap her to untap target creature we control or land we control. Sir Conrad the Grim, a card that needs very little introduction for this channel specifically, loves it when creatures die, enter graveyards, or leave graveyards. Every time something like that happens, he'll be dealing 1 damage to each of our opponents. Another absolute powerhouse, the Gitrog Monster. It has Death Touch. At the beginning of our upkeep, we have to sacrifice it unless we sacrifice a land. We can play an additional land on each of our turns, and whenever 1 or more land cards are put into our graveyard from anywhere, we can draw a card. Tormod the Desecrator, whenever 1 or more cards leave our graveyard, we create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. And Whisper Blood Liturgist, we can tap Whisper and sacrifice 2 creatures to return target creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield. And for our not-so-legendary creatures, Butcher of Malakir. Whenever Butcher of Malakir or another creature we control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Dreadhound. Whenever it enters, we mill 3, and whenever a creature card dies or is put into a graveyard from anywhere, each opponent loses 1 life. Dutiful Attendant. Whenever it dies, we can get a creature card back from our graveyard to our hand. Eternal Taskmaster. Whenever it attacks, we can pay 2 and a black, and return a creature card from our graveyard back to our hand. Genesis, if it's in our graveyard at the beginning of our upkeep, we can pay 2 and a green and return a creature card from our graveyard back to our hand. Grim Haruspex, whenever another non-token creature we control dies, we can draw. Hell's Caretaker, we can tap it, sacrifice a creature, and return a creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield. Kessig Cagebreakers, whenever it attacks, we get a 2/2 green wolf creature token that's tapped and attacking for each creature card in our graveyard. Loaming Shaman, whenever it enters the battlefield, target player shuffles any number of target cards from their graveyard into their library. Mortician Beetle. Whenever a player sacrifices a creature, we can put a 1/1 counter on the beetle. Pawn of Ulamog. Whenever Pawn of Ulamog or another non-token creature we control dies, we get a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn creature token that we can sacrifice for colorless mana. Pitiless Plunderer. Whenever another creature we control dies, we get a treasure token. Ravenous Squirrel. Whenever we sacrifice an artifact or a creature, it gets a 1/1 counter, and we can pay 1, a black, and a green and sacrifice an artifact or a creature to gain 1 and draw a card. Ruthless Technomancer. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we can sacrifice another creature we control. If we do, we create a number of treasures equal to that creature's power. Scion Summoner. Whenever it enters, we get a 1/1 Eldrazi Scion creature token. Seeker of Skybreak. We can tap it to untap target creature. Skola Grove Dancer. Whenever a land card is put into our graveyard from anywhere, we gain a life. Tireless Tracker. Whenever a land card enters the battlefield under our control, we can investigate, and whenever we sacrifice a clue, it gets a 1/1 counter. Turn Temper Sour. Whenever one or more land cards are put into our graveyard from anywhere, we create a 0/1 green plant creature token. Vindictive Vampire. Whenever another creature we control dies, deals 1 damage to each opponent, and we gain a life. Willowgeist. Whenever one or more cards leave our graveyard, it gets a 1/1 counter, and when it dies, we gain life equal to its power. And Zulaport Cutthroat. Whenever one or more creatures we control die, each opponent loses 1 and we gain 1. Moving on to our enchantments, Bastion of Remembrance. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get a 1/1 white human soldier creature token, and whenever a creature we control dies, each opponent loses 1 and we gain 1. Crawling Infestation. At the beginning of our upkeep, we can mill 2, and whenever one or more creature cards are put into our graveyard from anywhere during our turn, we create a 1/1 green insect creature token, but this ability only triggers once each turn. Crawling Sensation. During our upkeep, we can mill 2, and whenever one or more land cards are put into our graveyard from anywhere for the first time, we get a 1/1 insect. Ghoulish Procession. Whenever one or more non-token creatures die, we create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed, but this ability only triggers once each turn. Golgari Germination. Whenever a non-token creature we control dies, we get a 1/1 green Saproling. Moldervine Reclamation. Whenever a creature we control dies, we gain 1 and draw a card. Open the Graves. Whenever a non-token creature we control dies, we get a 2/2 zombie. Phyrexian Reclamation. We can pay 1 in the black and 2 life to return target creature card from our graveyard to our hand. Uvenwald Mysteries. Whenever a non-token creature we control dies, we can investigate. And whenever we sacrifice a clue, we get a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. And Vampiric Rites. We can pay 1 in the black and sacrifice a creature to gain a life and draw a card. Moving on to our instants, Corpse Churn allows us to mill 3 cards and recur a creature. Deadly Dispute. As an additional cost, we can sacrifice an artifact or a creature to draw 2 and create a treasure token. Defile. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp we control. Fungal Rebirth. We can return target permanent card from our graveyard to our hand, and if a creature died this turn, we get a 1/1 Saproling. Grapple with the Past. We're going to mill 3, and then we can recur a creature or land card from our graveyard. Plumb the Forbidden. As an additional cost, we can sacrifice 1 or more creatures, but for each creature we sacrifice, we copy the spell to draw a card and lose a life. Soul Shatter. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker with the highest converted mana cost among those creatures and planeswalkers they control. Tragic Slip. Target creature gets -1/-1, but if a creature died this turn, it gets -13/-13. Village Rites, as an additional cost, will sacrifice a creature to draw 2. And Wildwood Rebirth, we can return a creature card from our graveyard to our hand. For our sorceries, Deadly Brew, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. If we sacrificed a permanent this way, we can return another permanent card from our graveyard to our hand. Druidic Ritual, we're going to mill 3 and then we can recur either a creature card or a land card from our graveyard back to our hand. Incarnation Technique, we can mill 5 cards and then return a creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield. Read the Bones, we can scry 2, draw 2, and lose 2 life. Sign in Blood, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. And last but not least is our mana base. We are going to be keeping things very basic with 18 basic swamps and 17 basic forests. And just like that, we've reached the end of this Commander Deck Tech. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, tell your friends about us, and leave a comment down below. I'm looking forward to bringing you more cool Commander Deck Techs in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate all of your support.